the real Israel, and also they say that they're not the Jews. In the Bible, in Ezekiel chapter 35, tells you that they're going to take over our land. And Yahawah in Luke 21:24, remember the last part of that prophecy, he said that Jerusalem shall be trampled down of the Gentiles, remember? Yeah. Until what? Until what?
The time of the Gentiles.
Until the time of the Gentiles
be fulfilled.
Which is the time of the Gentiles fulfilled?
Almost.
Is it now? Is there a time up now? Are we still in Gentile rulership now, or we're not in Gentile rulership?
We're still in Gentile rulership.
So is their time to rule expired yet?
No.
So he said Jerusalem is going to be trampled down by who?
The heathen. Or the
Trampled down by the heathen, by the Gentiles, until what?
Until the time is fulfilled.
So if he says that as long as the Gentiles are in rulership, as long as their time is not up yet, Jerusalem is going to be occupied, trampled down by Gentiles. Who's over there?
The Gentiles.
The Gentiles are the ones that are in Jerusalem because the Gentiles are still in charge of the planet Earth. You see? You got to look at his prophecy and look at exactly what he said. He said, you shall die by the edge of the sword. Go to that real quick. Luke 21:24, whole chapter 30. Isaiah. Somebody, you want to lay down? But she can't go in the bed up there, can she? You got that? Luke 21:24. About Yashamaya. Luke 21:24.
I got you. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
The day is talking about Israel when you read up, because he's talking about Jerusalem being attacked by the Romans.
And shall be led away captive into all nations. Led away captive into all nations.
So they shall be what?
Led away captive.
So he said they shall be led away captive. Where?
Into all nations.
To Greece?
All nations.
To Rome?
All nations.
Led captive into all nations. Read.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles.
So Luke 21:24 says that Jerusalem is going to be trampled down or trodden down by the Gentiles. Now, when are Gentiles not going to trodden down Jerusalem? When are Gentiles going to stop trampling upon Jerusalem? Read.
Until the time of the Gentiles.
When the time of the Gentiles what?
Be fulfilled.
So when the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled, the Gentiles won't trample down Jerusalem anymore. Which means no matter who we say they are, or who we think they are, or who they say and think they are, Yahawah is saying Jerusalem is going to be trampled down trodden down by Gentiles until the Gentiles' rulership is up. So if this is all we know one thing. They are not Israelites. They are not Hebrews. They are not the people that the book is talking about with covenant. Why? Because they're in Jerusalem. And he tells us plainly that the Israelites won't be in Jerusalem as long as the Gentiles are in their rulership.
Okay, so who did the Holocaust happen to? Are those
it happened to white people, but Christ said that they're Gentiles.
They're not Jews.
What does Christ say? What does he say? He said, are they in Jerusalem right now? Yeah, they're in Jerusalem. It was set up. Jerusalem was set up under a mandate by the UN, the British mandate, 1948, 1947, by what's his name? Herzl. Theodore Herzl, right? I think it was 40. No, it wasn't that early.
It was 47.
It was like 47. Okay. Yeah, we got 2 against 1.
They say it's a miracle that it happened because it was only a matter of so many of the right people being in place at the UN, and it really shouldn't have happened.
Man, the UN is a joke.
The UN
is another branch of the Illuminati.
Right, a tool.
Illuminati is a joke. So for them to say, it was a miracle, no, show me a miracle that don't involve man, and I believe you. Show me a miracle that doesn't involve the governments doing X, Y, Z, and I believe it. Right. So now Yahawah says, this is a very important verse right here. Because he says that Jerusalem is going to be trodden down by the Gentiles. I mean, they're either going to be controlling it or treading down upon Jerusalem until the Gentiles' rulership expires. What does that mean to you? Let's look at this and let's see what does that mean to you? He says that, so here's the Gentiles in power. This is the Gentiles in power. And here's Jerusalem. And here's the Gentiles trodden down Jerusalem. Here's the Gentiles in power. So he says the Gentiles are going to trodden down Jerusalem until their rulership is over. When the Gentiles' rulership is over, the new kingdom is going to be Israel, ruled under Christ, King David, the 12 disciples, the 12 tribes of Israel. We're going to put all nations back in order. So now, here's Israel. Gentiles ain't going to be in Israel once Israel's back in power. So, for Israel to be in Jerusalem means what? That Israel got to what? Be back in power. For the Gentiles to be in rulership means that the Gentiles are the ones in Jerusalem.
So are there any white people in the 12 tribes of Israel according to what you're telling me?
According to history in the Bible, no. White people on the planet Earth, you have 2 types of white people, 3 types of white people on the planet Earth. You have a small fraction of white people that actually have ancestry that goes back to brown-skinned people that are Israelites or people of other nations, but they have white skin. Okay, that's like a small minority. The second type of white person you have is a person that might be of any nation, and they have leprosy. So their skin is white. They have a form of leprosy, so their skin is white, no color, no pigmentation. The third type of white person, which is the most prominent, are the descendants of of Esau and Jacob from Genesis chapter 25. The nation that's going to be in power after the rulership of Israel expires. That's the third type of white person. White people on the planet Earth come from a forefather like Africans, Chinese, Japanese, East Indians. We all come from a forefather. Okay? So the Europeans on the earth now, their forefather is Esau. And even if they want to say, oh, they come from Japhet, you know, that's wrong, but I'm not going to argue that point. If you want to be from Japhet, you can be from Japhet. But the thing is this, you have a common ancestor. And that common ancestor is not Jacob. That common ancestor is not Shem. That common ancestor is not Abraham. Actually, it is Abraham. When you go into the lineage, it comes from Abraham, and then Abraham had Isaac. And Isaac had 2 twin sons through Rebekah, Esau and Jacob. The Europeans now are Esau. And the indigenous peoples and the so-called blacks in the Americas come from out of Jacob. Because remember, Israel, Jacob had the same blueprint of rulership and power and genetics going back to Adam. So the blueprint is in Israel, Jacob, to create any expression of what exists in humankind. Why? Because it's coming from the rulership and the throne, and that power is passed down to them. That's why you have you don't see black family with somebody looking. I mean, you don't see a Chinese family with somebody looking Puerto Rican, somebody looking like they're from East India, and somebody looking like they're from Africa. But in our family, you can have somebody looking African, somebody looking Indian, somebody looking Puerto Rican, and even somebody looking like they're Indian. I know brothers that have Hindu features, but they're not Hindu. You know, I know brothers that have Chinese features. You know, they call a black girl that have Chinese eyes. What? They call her China. You know, they're looking more have more of like in other words, our pigmentation, our bloodline has the ability to express itself many different ways. Often it is expressed in a particular structure or framework of ways. But we can express ourselves genetically any way. All right? So from us, you can have a leper or a dark person or a light person. But from a white person, you're gonna have a white person or a black person if that's in their genetic makeup before that.
Okay, I have a question. So at the time of Jesus, were all the people, that were living in Jerusalem at the time of Israel, the time of Jesus, his life on earth, were they black people?
No. You had white people living there also. You had East Indians. I mean, you had Hindus. You had people that would be considered now to be modern, Chinese. Because
Jesus was black.
Yeah, Yahawah Christ was black. Was and forever shall be. Because remember, the absence of color, white skin in the Bible is called leprosy. And leprosy was a disease. It was a malfunction. It was not a proper genetic expression. So he was brown skinned. Okay? He was brown skinned, he was not white. He couldn't have been white. Because he did not come from Esau. Esau was the white nation. Okay? So he was born with brown skin like his other brothers and sisters. He was not that was the white people now are the minority on the earth. That's why you look at Africa. Okay, check this out. Look at Africa. Look at Australia. Look at Asia. Okay? Look at North America and South America. Look at the original occupants.